Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. And today's special edition, lunchtime edition, as I'm recording at my lunch at my office, we're going to be talking about Mike Grier being named the general manager of the Sharks and his initial reactions from his press conference. So all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, JD Young, Fear the Fin and San Jose Hockey Now contributor. And the Sharks, after their long search, finally named Mike Grier the general manager. We kind of was leaked yesterday, and then, of course, was officially confirmed, I guess, late last night by Kevin Weeks. And, the Sharks came out today and said it. I think, we talked about his qualifications and, about where he doesn't have maybe as much of an assistant general manager. He was a pro scout and, has kind of worked his way up, has played hockey, of course, and was a coach. And, he's kind of been building along there and working for the Rangers last year. And coming out of his press conference today, they mentioned where he was kind of doing the roles of the assistant general manager without the title of an assistant general manager. So, and when he worked with the Rangers last season. And, I feel, Mike Grier, they felt he was the best candidate. That's what they said. And, I think, with all the resources and effort that they put into this, they must have felt very strongly about Mike Grier being that best candidate. And then, of course, the big thing, too, is that he's the first Black general manager in the entire NHL's history. So, that's just a kind of a neat thing. And, they said that it wasn't they hired who they thought was the best general manager candidate, and that he was Black was just kind of that added bonus to it, and just to help being that pioneering, kind of helping break grounds that the Sharks organization is like to do. So, I'm cautiously optimistic about Mike Grier. We've seen plenty of players, who've become successful GMs in the NHL. Doug Wilson himself was a successful GM and was a former player. And I think having his, dad who was, has been working in football for a long time, and his brother who's the general manager of the Miami Dolphins, having those guys to lean on, and like go to and like learning from those guys. He said he's basically been training for this, getting ready for this moment since he was 10 years old. Just having conversations with his dad and his brother around the dinner table. And I feel like he's gonna, he's gonna put everything he has into it, and we'll see if he ends up being the right choice. And I'm feeling better about it than I was maybe last week, just after hearing him speak with, about his press conference and just kind of his experience and stuff like that. So, he definitely has his work cut out for him. We all know that. And I think the other big takeaway for me was, he said, we're not going to tear it down like Arizona is done and what other teams are done. But sometimes you have to take a step back to take a step forward, which I think is really, really intriguing. So, maybe he has, the Sharks have been kind of in this really loading or retooling phase. And, I think maybe another year or two of this where they're trying to continually add, big name, potential big name talent in the draft, and then and try to clean up their cap space from there, might be the way to go. So I don't think it's going to be a full burn it down situation, but, maybe he's convinced ownership that, we're not going to make the playoffs this year, but if we can take a step back for a year or two and then kind of build this up the right way from the foundation, and kind of drawing a parallel to the Miami Dolphins. So, they went full burn it down mode. They used to have a terrible cap situation, and then, they went through a couple years of that, just getting that cap space cleaned up and getting, moving draft picks and getting, moving pressure draft picks and getting, high quality talent in the draft. And that's starting to pay off for them. And it's a lot different in hockey where, it takes years for these players to develop and kind of, make it to the NHL, let alone contribute in the NHL. But I think there could be some parallels there, maybe taking some tips out of the old Chris Grier playbook and trying to rebuild an organization. And now, if you guys know me, I'm a big Dolphins fan. Dolphins actually were my favorite team. So, seeing the young potential of like the players that they have on their team now, and hopefully some of that can translate to the Sharks here. Because we feel really excited about, some of the young potential, but adding to that, and then, I think hopefully moving on, kind of working out of some of these older contracts and this older core, whether it be trades or whatever it be. But, there might be some fun, exciting times for the Sharks coming up. So before we continue this emergency podcast and look at, kind of some of the quotes coming out of from new Sharks GM Mike Grier, let's take a quick break, talk to you guys about our friends over at Built Bar. You guys know Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar on the market. And now they have new flavor, the coconut brownie chunk puff. It's coconut, it's a brownie, all covering marshmallow and covered in 100% real chocolate. It's a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. So, and the best thing about them is they're also good for you. They're low calorie, low sugar, high protein, and all delicious. They're only here for a limited time. So go to built.com right now to make sure you don't miss out. They're going fast because they taste amazing. Again, head to built.com, use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off. Also, you guys know NHL draft. It's this weekend. It's this week. And we at Locked On have you covered. So make sure you guys are subscribed over at the Locked On Sharks page, but just in general, the Locked On podcast, because the NHL draft, it's here Thursday. We're going to be having live reactions from local experts, local hosts and draft experts to break it down, the insights, analysis for every first round pick. I'll be doing a live stream that night. So make sure, we'll be kind of playing it by ear about what time, but we're going to have a live stream to talk about the Sharks picks and whatever move they do. So subscribe to Locked On Sharks on YouTube for all the latest breakdowns and live reactions. I think the other big thing coming out of here was, he was asked about kind of what the biggest priority was for the team. And I think he mentioned trying to create some cap flexibility, because we know that this team is not looking great with his cap, especially when you look at the Vlasic contract, you look at the, Erik Karlsson contract, Brent Burns contracts, Logan Couture contract's going to start to look not great here pretty soon. And you're going to have to pay Timo Meier. So I think, creating some cap flexibility was something that he mentioned as a big priority for them. And, I think that leads to, he was asked about Vlasic. He said he didn't want to comment on that yet. So, which is very fair. He literally just started, and that would be terrible to just be like, oh yeah, we're buying him out, during your introductory press conference. But, I think for them, if they look at buying out of Vlasic or trading to Burns, like, they're going to have to be aggressive this off season to try to create some of that cap flexibility for themselves. So, yeah, and doing that, and then if you're trying to add some more younger pieces to the core, I think that's going to be the way to go for them if they want to compete here sooner rather than later. So, he did, and of course, he was asked about the Evander Kane situation. He didn't want to speculate on that because, again, I don't think he's going to mention any of that stuff during his introduction press conference. And, was asked about Russian players, and he said he didn't want to close the door on that because it's not fair to hold these kids against them that they have no control over, which I thought was a really great answer too, just because, it's especially with the draft this weekend. And that's kind of one of the big storylines heading to the draft is what's going to happen with these Russian players. So, I think they're going to, especially with their Doug Wilson Jr. and those guys, they're going to pick the best player available. And if you can get value from a potential Russian player, I think they're going to, look at the risk of potential risk of what's going on with that. And if they can, if the risk outweighs or if the rewards outweigh the risk, they, be willing to take a swing. And, Doug Wilson Jr., I don't think they said they're not taking anyone off their board. So, and then some of the other ones, I thought he definitely had some questions about being the first Black general manager. And, I think he's proud of that, but I think he wanted to focus on just being the general manager and not trying to make it, about the color of his skin. And, I don't know what that's like, but I could sense that, he doesn't want that to be like the only thing about him is just being, I'm the first Black GM. He's like, no, he wants to be just a good GM. And the fact that he's Black shouldn't, be the first thing that we talk about. So, I think that's going to be an interesting kind of thing for him where it's, let's focus on my accomplishments and stuff, and not just that I'm the first Black general manager. So, but yeah, I think, another big takeaway for me from it was just, he seems like a really straight shooter where he's going to kind of tell it like it is, and he's going to try to, hold people accountable. He's not going to kind of play that kind of song and dance with people, Shang asked him about Bob Bugner. He's like, I don't know. I wasn't here. I don't nothing to say. I'm not going to lie to you and say, he did a great job or didn't do a great job because I wasn't here in the building. So, I hope we get more of that just kind of straight shooterness, and hopefully we get to see a little bit more just accessibility, I guess. The teal curtain has been such a daunting part of the Sharks organization where, they just don't let information come out, and hopefully we get just a little bit more of information of, what's going on and stuff like that. I think as fans, and we want to hear more about what's going on and stuff. So, he did mention the coaching search right now is his big priority, of course, is the draft. They're going to be leaving for Montreal soon. Then they got free agency, then in the coaching search. He said that they've already got kind of their list. They're going to be reaching out this afternoon to some of their first people on their list to try to start getting that process going. He doesn't have a timetable on it because especially with this part of the calendar year, whereas he's not really in a race because most basically I think all the other positions are filled right now except for the Sharks. So he can have his kind of pick of whoever's left over and go from there. And, I think another big thing that kind of came out too was I don't think they're done adding to the front office. So, and I think he's going to continue to try to surround himself with smart people to help him in this role, in this position, and, maybe get some new voices into the organization, which isn't the worst thing. I think, sometimes you can, the Shark organization, it can be very, it's very close knit, but I think sometimes you need that fresher breath air to kind of maybe bring a different perspective. So, I'm going to be interested to see how him and his organization maybe bring analytics, and what their draft strategy is and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I thought it was a pretty successful press conference. I'm excited to see what Mike Grier does. They feel like he's the best candidate, and I know his lack of assistant general manager, it might be a bit of a red flag, but I think he's going to surround himself with smart people. He's going to try to work well with and we've seen that too, where he works really well with a lot of different people, and he's all about being a leader and kind of being that voice and that guy. And I think he's gonna do a great job with that. So yeah, that's it for the emergency episode of Locked On Sharks from Mike Grier. Sorry about the lack of anything going on here in the background. I'm literally in an office right now, so a little meeting room right now. So, but we'll be back tomorrow. We're going to be looking at kind of the final tiers of the players that I want the Sharks to draft. Of course, you can find you can find the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also listen wherever you get podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Odyssey, where. we're everywhere. YouTube, go ahead and subscribe. Like I said, going to do a live show during the first round. And then, of course, we'll have, on Friday, you're going to get a reaction to all the Sharks draft picks, kind of get into some of their scouting reports and who the Sharks have brought into the fold and get you guys ready for free agency next week. And it's that time of year, guys. So, you can also follow me on Twitter at myfryhole. And again, getting 7 episodes this week, guys. Bye, friends.